I want to say good evening to everyone. We're welcome to Liberty County Board of Commissioners boardroom, and we're going to do a presentation today. The board was awarded about $13.78 million of American Rescue Plan monies, and when the committee met last year, they looked at different projects that they wanted to fund, and one of them that they were very emphatic about, and that was providing some funds for nonprofits along the lines of doing things to help young people, educational assistance, and that's pretty much what we've entitled this, is educational assistance for academic learning. So welcome today. Thank you for coming. We got a chance to find out, how you came and your interest today. So thank you once again for coming. We're gonna dive right in it because we don't want to take up your time. And by the way, this will be placed on YouTube as well as Facebook. You'll be able to get your documents. I've upgraded the application, added one sentence. We're going to upgrade that to the Liberty County, www.libertycountyga.com. You'll be able to download the application. And also, just call me. I'll be more than glad to fax, email, whatever we can to get the application to you, or you can just come by. So whatever we can do to make sure you have the information, we want to do it because we want you to be successful in your application. This is a pre-application workshop. We want to show you what we're looking for and what we're at, and we want to help you. And we also want you to know that we are available by phone, email, text, if you have any questions. Okay? So we're going to dive right into it. And Mr. Brown, I don't know if you all know Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown is our county administrator. He and I, we're going to be tag teaming this presentation. I'm Joseph Mosley. It's the first thing Mom tell you, boy, introduce yourself, and I forgot to do that. So I'm Joseph Mosley. I'm the assistant county administrator here. Okay? The session overview will cover the introduction, the purpose of the grant, the practicality of funding, the application process, the parameters of the grant application submittal, and the award process. As I mentioned earlier, we were awarded $13.78 million, and what they did is they allocated a total. So the total pot for this particular project is $100,000. And again, the purpose of these grants are to assist nonprofit agencies in their programming to help young people, particularly in the academic area. And this period will run from September 1 to May the 30th, so basically the school year. Since we got a total of $100,000, we want this $100,000 to be stretched to as many of the projects as possible. And so the awards will be in different sizes and different amounts based upon the scope and the potential. How many students you're going to positively affect. Do any of y'all have a copy of the grant application? And that was an oversight on my behalf. Okay, here is. Actually, I had two of them, but I didn't think about it. Basically, on the cover page, this is the application process itself. On the cover page, you're just going to complete the data there in terms of identifying, who you are and who you are. And then section B is the mission or purpose of the organization. Write in the relevant information. So just on page 1, just kind of fill in the blank. The meat of it is going to come really on pages 4 and 5. Here's where the meat will come in. Okay. Question 1, you're going to write a brief description, include the data for the number of students, students to serve, program activity description, target goals, and years in operation. And the red area right there, that's a crucial part now, because these are federal funds, and everything we're doing with the federal funds, we got to account for it. The ladies are putting in reports, financial reports, every month in terms of what do we spend for ARPA funds. And so because we're required to do it, we're going to ask you to work with it. So this part right here, the focus of as you assist students who are disproportionately, they call disproportionately impacted households. And how do you define that? Well, ARPA says students or people who are eligible could fit in any of the following categories. TANF, and that's temporary assistance for needy families. SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistant Program, NSLP and SBEP, Free and Reduced Lunch Program, and school breakfast programs, the Medicare Part D low income subsidies, SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, Head Start or Early Head Start students who are eligible for those programs, Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, simply known as WIC, Section 8 vouchers, Low Income Home Assistant Program, or LHIP, and Pell Grants. So if your students are eligible for any of those programs, and here you're probably going to have to document for us if your students are eligible for any of those programs. And the grant specifically talks about disproportionately impacted households. So if any of your students are in any of those categories, please document that to the best of your ability. Okay? So again, we want to make sure you see that portion right there as it talk about that. Okay? Joe, you do want to talk any more on the disproportionately impacted households? I shared that.
You know, I'll just, as we were looking at those many pages of federal grant requirements, we were trying to pick out what was the easiest criteria for everybody to meet. And so I think, to me at least, that's the reason we listed some of these, and I think he's got a full copy of some of those for you too, and they're certainly available online, is that as long as your recipient, or as long as your target audience qualifies for any of those, and it's actually a full page, then you'll be fine. So again, we were trying to make it as easy as we could do.
So the application you see on page 3, basically the data we talked about earlier, beginning with page 1, question 1, and then on page 2. On page 4, it talks about if you're going to collaborate with an agency, for instance, one of y'all may collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club on some stuff, list that in the application. That's question number 2. What are some going to be your positive impacts? How will you impact the youth of Liberty County? And section number 4 is describe how we use the funds. Well, we use these funds maybe to do some, to pay some tutors to come in and help us in the process. So talk about how you're going to use the funds. Question 5 is, this kind of one of those questions is how will you sustain the program? If we aren't able to fund you anymore, how will you sustain the program? So that's what you want to talk about there. Number 6, will these funds be used to leverage other funds? That's a big thing you see with grants is I'll take this pot of money and this pot of money. I'll take this pot of money to get this pot of money. So that's what we mean by leverage. Question 7, outline your goals and objectives of your program. And question 8, does your organization utilize volunteer services? You also notice on page number 5, when we talk about the funding grants, this kind of outline, if you're keenly aware that you'll get, for instance, you're requesting so much from Liberty County in this particular pot, and if any other entities you're aware of, you might be like the Boys and Girls Club, you do fundraising, you expect to get, say, $20,000 of fundraising. Just kind of list that out. Show your sources and anticipated amounts. On page 5, and it's on the budget revenue on page 5 where it says funding. You'll see right there it says County of Liberty, and then other local governments. If you're going to get something for, say, the city of Hinesville or Walterville or some other community, and then if you're going to do some fundraising, just list out your funding sources. And then attachments. This help us out if you already established agency, your most recent audit report, any current financial statements you have. If you're a certified 501c3. Which is basically a nonprofit. It's recognized by the IRS. And most completed IRS Form 990, your board of directors, if you have any, and any minutes that you might have. Just kind of let us know. What is that doing for us? It's letting us know that you're a legitimate organization. That's what it's doing. Yes, ma'am.
Question for the IRS Form 990. The chamber doesn't have, or we don't do that particular form. We just do regular taxes. We don't need that tax information.
I think a lot of this, it says if applicable, so if it's not applicable, don't worry. Okay, just want to emphasize, the grants are due on the 1st, which is the first day of August, Monday the 1st at 2 p.m. Send them to me. You can leave them with Sharon, and she'll sign off on them, or anybody in the office will sign off on them and receive them. Saying receive. And you'll notice on page 1, we have some formatting requirements on page 1, the bottom part of page 1. Just some formatting requirements we would like to ask you to do. Want you to type it now, no handwritten now, you know. Want it type, nice, neat. Now this is a section that we're gonna really need you guys to pay close attention to, and that's under the assessment requirements. One of the aspects of the federal dollars that on the academic enhancement is we have to deal with assessments, and that is if you go to http://www.ed.gov Corona's lost instructional time, it basically says the strategies for using ARPA funding to address the impact of lost instructional time. It talks about assessments, and one of the things that we were looking at is a pre-assessment, which is basically you're gauging where your students are academically, and it needs to be an assessment that's nationally recognized. So where are your students academically? And then, based upon the objectives that you had, did you accomplish those objectives with a post-assessment? And Joe, would you like to add anything on there?
I know, I think I would encourage you just to go to that website, because it'll explain that in more detail, but it's basically one of their approved methodologies for a pre and a post test. And so, yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind is there are educational funds, and so, you know, as far as trying to stipulate use of those for, field trips, you know, what you call it, it's strictly instructional. So it's educational assistance. But no, thank you, Joe, but it's a pre and post test. That's not all printed out for you. Okay. No, ma'am, that's the reason we wanted to list the website for you, so you could go straight to that ARPA website.
On the new one, ma'am, I did list it here on page 6, that particular website.
Yeah, the website is in the, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant that we have a printout of it, I'm sorry. No, I was looking. Yes, ma'am.
The assessment,
And it's going to be, and the criteria will be, I did not put that in there, but it will be on pages 22, 26, talking about the assessment requirements. Yes, ma'am. And if you were to go and print out the PDF, it'll be a document look just like this. And if you go to page 22 through 26, it'll lay out all the information on assessments. And that's one of those things that we got to make sure when we submit the stuff back to the feds, we got to show that. So that's why we're asking you to work with us on that. Committee will review the submitted applications and make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for approval. We anticipate, we don't know, but we anticipate hoping that we can get it to the commissioners on the 18th, and after that, the board likes to do awards in person, so we may be looking at a subsequent meeting to actually do the awards. And what we want to do is give you, do the grant awards 50% up front and 50% upon closing to make sure all paperwork is done. And again, questions, you can send them to me. That's my email address, my phone number, and the county website. We're going to upload I just tweaked it with that information on the assessment. We're going to add that. Sharon will take down the old one and put up the new one. So that's the contact information.
50% upfront?
Yes, ma'am.
50%
50% of what, if you ask for 20,000, you're awarded 20,000, we'll give you 50% of, yes, ma'am.
I was still in the application.
So, I guess the only other takeaway is this: unlike a conventional grant application to the state of Georgia or maybe even some local government agencies, our goal is to make sure every one of you are successful. So bear with us as we get those applications in. If we, we may come back to you if it's not strong enough to meet the federal guidelines and say, hey, we need a little clarification, or hey, can you do this to make you qualify? So our goal is to make sure every one of you qualify. I just want you to understand that. So when you turn it in, it's not going to be a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's going to be, hey, can I get some additional information? I want to make sure you're strong enough to be okay to qualify. And I guess that's all. That's the only thing I wanted to add is that we're going to, our mission is to make you be successful in the application process. So we're going to try everything we can to get you to be successful. Okay, to do that. We'll be working with you to help you win.
Is there a time frame for how long we get to spend the money? That we get 50% up front and 50%.
The grant period will be. The grant period will be from September 1 to May 31st. Basically following the school year as close as we can.
Do most of y'all, if you were going to do an educational, if you have one ongoing, or if you're going to do an educational program startup, is that the right period of time?
Yes, we get the
Is it? Okay, okay. During the school year? Because you want to try to bring them in after school, work with them on tutorial, or, okay, great, okay, good. Good. That was our thought, but we're not in the business, so we want to make sure y'all are okay with that, to be able to do that. Good, good.
If you don't know where it is measured, you just ask the teachers. If there's someone that can do, let's see if there's a tool for you that you use. With, when the money's at the building, they got, I don't remember too many, I did that with service, but they're out there.
Is there anything that you see that might cause a problem for you in that application for submission? Anything? We're not looking for you to have to put together a 50-page thing. It's, you can keep it as simple. We just need that backup and be able to determine that. Is there anything that we've left out or that you think you might have a problem with?
I'd just like to clarify something. Once we get the money, are we also responsible for turning in a report of how the money is spent?
You only need to really return it in, there's no periodic reports. You just need to be able to turn it in at the end of this. Anytime you finish, of course, with the funds. You don't have to wait until the end of the period to send in your report. If you finish, you can send it in early. If you don't, you send it in at the end. And just make sure you send in send in your pre-assessment. That's what's gonna kick loose that second half of the money for you. After you do that, you'll do your pre-assessment. You'll get the second half of the money after you send in your post-assessment at the end. So whenever that is. I mean, y'all are busy. You may go through this money in 3 months. There's no requirement you spread it out over that length of time. Does that help? Help? Okay. Suggestions? Concerns?
So the application is grassroots, correct? This was a grassroots.
We hope so.
Yes, yes. Again, we tried to dig through those regs, and y'all have seen many of those through the guidelines to try to keep it as simple as we can. We did that with the private nonprofit business-related grants too. So I hope that we'll take your input.
So how will, it's got to be here somewhere, how will we know where to send the, reinforced assessment information?
You can send it.
You just send it back in, yes ma'am, same way you do the application. Yeah, it'll be fine.
If I want some money out,
Yes, ma'am, because we'll be anxious to get you back the other 50% as quickly as we can too. There won't be any lengthy turnaround.
Larry,
questions? I'm gonna go run to my office and get some cards, so y'all have cards, so y'all can.
I think I must have missed this too. Is this application also online?
Yes, ma'am. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload a newer version of it, because I added that section about the assessment, so we're gonna put that on. Thank y'all for coming. Now let me go get my cards.